Welcome to CPA Presents. My name is Mike Kosalniak. I am the CPA Flight Safety Chair. Tonight's topic is STEM flights, history and mission. This presentation is presented by the founder of STEM flights, Mr. Dave Brewbaker, Brigadier General, United States Air Force retired, and Carly Walker, Director of Development. STEM Flights is a national nonprofit organization that connects middle and high school students with volunteer pilot mentors to learn about science, technology, engineering, and math. STEM. We inspire America's youth to pursue STEM and aviation careers with a unique flight experience. STEM Flights was a concept that had been percolating in the mind of its founder, retired Brigadier General Dave Brewbaker, for many years. It began soon after a 34-year career in the United States Air Force, Air National Guard, flying jet aircraft, F-100s, F-4, and F-16. As he transitioned back to civilian life in 2005, he continued his passion for flying and purchased a Cessna 172 for personal use. Over the ensuing years, he made it a point to share his love of flying by giving countless rides to family, friends, friends of friends, and even strangers who just showed an interest or desire to fly. He participated in numerous events that promoted aviation, visited school classrooms to talk to kids, joined pilot flying associations, trained for additional ratings like helicopter, A&P, and seaplane, and embraced his new general aviation flying family. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dave and Carly. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation or reaching out to us to talk to us about your foundation or organization. All right.
Hey, Mike, thank you for that introduction and appreciation to you and Brian for offering to allow us to make our presentation, and to everyone in the organization. We do these occasionally, and when we're invited, we're always honored. There's a couple of things. Well, I want to introduce my Director of Development and also my daughter, Carly Walker. Carly's going to do most of the talking tonight, and I'll interject where it's appropriate. There's a couple of things I like to get cleared up front so that there's no misconception. STEM Flights is not a substitute for Young Eagles. Many of our pilots still fly Young Eagles. I still fly Young Eagles, and I would say a lot of our pilots log a STEM flight and a Young Eagle flight at the same time. So there's no competition there. There's only complementary. We've even had some Young Eagles, after a Young Eagles flight, those kids that showed the most promise were referred to STEM flights, and we gave them a more intensive one-on-one experience, and you'll kind of understand what that is. And then the second thing I wanted to note is we love making this presentation to anyone interested. So if you are part of a club or another aviation-related organization and want us to do this for you or your group, we're happy to do that. With that, I'll, Carly, turn it over to you if you want to take the screen and put up our slides.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen and we'll go over a quick presentation. Want to say hi to Rick. I see that you're on the call. Thank you so much for connecting us with this awesome group. I see a couple other pilot mentors from Colorado that are on the call, and just wanted to say hi guys, thanks for volunteering. And we're so happy to be here. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to kick us off here, Dad?
Well, I think Mike kind of summarized this, and we'll have pictures of kids and some of our pilot mentors as we go out. So go ahead, Carly, for our next slide.
All right. So Mike did kind of talk about this in the introduction, but this was really Dad's vision when he retired, was how can we create the future leaders of our country? How can we create some workforce development? How can we inspire the next generation of aviators and aerospace workforce professionals? And Dad's experience in the defense industry upon his retirement showed him that sometimes the United States is outsourcing STEM careers to countries that aren't necessarily friendly to the United States. And he said, how can we change that? How can we inspire kids in the US to pursue STEM careers in aviation and aerospace? And his answer to that larger problem was, let's do it one flight at a time. And that's really where STEM Flights was born. As described in the intro, established by my dad, he wanted to fly kids around. I thought it was a really fun idea, and in no way, shape, or form did I think that 8 years later we would be in almost all 50 states around the United States, with pilots from all over signing up and kids from all over signing up. But this is where we are, and we were born in Virginia. But like I said, now we are a national nonprofit in 49 states, working on that 50th one right now. And a lot of pilots and students in the Colorado area. So we're so thankful for that. This is our team. Dad is our founder and chairman. He created the program. He then hired me, and we have a director of flight operations who lives in Texas. And if you're a pilot with STEM Flights, you know Austin really well. He helps organize and schedule the flights, and I handle a lot of the outreach and student activities to get students on board and through the program. So we're small but mighty. Two of us working full time, of course, and Dad donates all of his time, flies more kids than any other pilot mentor in our team. And he's also our largest donor, too. So sometimes I wonder why he keeps sticking around, because he's got a lot of work to do, and he gives the most money. Thanks for that, Dad.
Sure.
How do we find our students? This is one of the questions that we get a lot. It was important to us that we identify students who have skin in the game, and we find them various different ways. We reach out to school systems. We work with educators, nonprofit partners, museums, you name it, anywhere that we can grab kids. I will often go into social media groups and Facebook groups and find areas where we're looking for students that I might have pilots, and I'll promote to parents even. I write press releases. We work with local media to try to get the word out. But an important distinction from our program than maybe some other flight experiences, we ask the kids, they have to submit a letter of recommendation before they can fly with us, and they have to do some online homework. And really what we're trying to do is reach those students who are really interested in this, the kids that are more than likely going to go into flight training or some kind of STEM or aerospace career. The programs that offer 5 minutes in the pattern for anybody who shows up are amazing. And we need those programs, and we love those programs. So those programs often will refer their kids to us. Maybe if you fly 100 students on a rally day, you might get 5 that say, oh my gosh, I need to learn more. I want more. How can I keep flying? Send them over our way. Our program's a little bit more intensive. Our flights are a little bit longer, and we are delivering to our pilots a student who really wants to be there. Like I said, they've had to have some skin in the game. They've had to have some parent involvement, and they've had to do some extra work to get there. So that's how we find our kids. One important aspect that we do is annually surveying our students in a "where are you now" type survey. And what we're really trying to do is capture some data that proves an early experience with aviation and an early flight experience can really impact what that student ends up doing, whether it's their career choice, whether it's them soloing or getting a commercial license. But we try to stay with our students until they enter the workforce or flight training, so that we can really prove, hey, this flight experience impacted what this kid did. That's a little bit
Yeah.
about our kids.
So just a couple of comments on that, Carly. Just to be clear, we're not trying to make every kid we fly a pilot. It turns out that many of them want to be one after they fly. What we're doing is using the aircraft and the cockpit, sort of a STEM science lab, and depending on what the kid's interest is, and you'll see some of the mission selections that they have, we'll talk to them about those mission selections. And I think the important thing is, yep, we love having them pursue aviation careers, but we need engineers and scientists and other things. We want to get them interested in the sciences. Go ahead, Carly.
Right. These are our current missions. We offer 4 missions that a student can choose when they come to us. These missions, we offer some education around them. The flight experiences can be tailored to match these current missions, but we let our students pick their mission. Most of the time, I think probably around 90% of our missions are commercial, general, and military aviation. The students that come to us are really interested in that flying aspect, but not all of them. And we really try to be very broad when we're looking at aviation and aerospace careers in general. Yes, we want to create more pilots. That's absolutely something that we want to do. But we know that up and coming technology that impacts aviation is really important. And we want to make sure students that come to us understand all of the careers that touch aerospace. So we try to be pretty broad in our missions and what we offer our students for learning with us online. Pilot mentors. This applies to you, this group of pilot mentors. When we created the program and when Dad really kind of defined the type of pilot that would fly for us, he wanted to make sure that the flight was a little bit more than, just a loop in the pattern. We do ask our pilots to donate, between 30 and 45 minutes on their flight experience. We give them a checklist to go over so that they can, accomplish some tasks while they're doing that flight. And we want to be really clear. We do not offer flight training. So you do not have to be a CFI to fly with us. You have to have 250 hours and you have to have your private pilot license. We only fly day VFR. And again, it's not flight training. It's really no different than if you would take a neighbor kid up or a friend of yours up and show them the area and show them interesting geographic, you know, things in your town. It really is no different than that when we talk about the actual flight. And the student has already done some online learning with us. So by the time they get to you, they're coming to you to the airport with questions, with some working knowledge of what they've studied online with us. And they really want to be there. We ask pilot mentors if you can donate 4 flights a year. That really helps us. Um, Obviously, some of our pilots do way more than that. I'm looking at you, Rick. And some of our pilots can't do that many. Maybe they can only do 1 or 2. But we ask our donors, can you donate 4 flights? And that seems to be a really good number for us to fly the amount of students that we have signed up. Our to get onboarded with us, it's an online training. There's some videos that you watch, some modules. You'll have to listen to me drone on a little bit in some of the videos. And then a background check, which we cover the expense of. So it's not too hard to get signed up. The application is online and doesn't take long at all. Did you want to add something there, Dad?
Yeah, just pilot mentors are the heart of what we do. And uh, your personal interest in a kid that may have never had encouragement or an opportunity like this is so impactful and immeasurable. You don't have to know everything about every career, just your own personal experiences. We give you a checklist for you to use, but it's only a guide. If you just make a connection with the kid and inspire them, you've done your job. And what I find is these kinds of missions for our volunteer pilots mean so much more to them than just packing kids in their plane and taking them around the pattern. And again, there's some value there too, but this really impacts a kid. And the nice thing is we keep track of each of the kids and we can give you the feedback and the critiques and it's overwhelming. It's the pilot mentors are the heart of our organization. Go ahead, Carly.
I did notice in the also awesome intro that Brian put together that this group has talked to or had presentations from other organizations, not aviation nonprofits. And so that what that tells me is that your group is full of pilot mentors in the sense that you donate your time to public benefit flying missions. So our colleagues in public benefit flying, our Angel Flight West pilots and Paws, so many others And we really fall under that public benefit flying umbrella. So any pilot that's interested in using your passion for aviation to donate a flight back to a student is donating their time to public benefit flying. And I think that's so great that this organization is really interested in that. This is a quick map to represent all the states that we have either a student or a pilot in. The last holdout is North Dakota, which is so interesting because it's a very aviation friendly state. And we just haven't had any pilots or students sign up there yet. So if you have a friend in that area, we'd love to meet them and get our 50th state done on the map there. Let me tell you really quickly about STEMflight Following, because this part of our program, I feel like, is the most critical from the student perspective. So let's say you have this amazing flight, you transformed a student's life in your community, you're feeling great about it, but what's next? What happens then? You leave the airport, the student leaves the airport, now what? That is the really big piece of our program that we felt like needed so much attention. We want to make sure that every student that leaves that flight experience has resources to continue their journey. Those resources might look like scholarship search assistance. Maybe they need additional mentoring. Maybe we connect them with a pilot, that is a military pilot if that's their focus. We've had students reach out that want some help identifying four-year universities to go to, and what did we think about them, and did we know anybody there? So we really want to stay with these kids. Maybe they're looking for a camp or an aerospace internship. We've gotten countless students internships at their airports. We want to help them with that journey. And sometimes we talk to them for years afterwards as they try to navigate that. We're all pilots on this call, but can you imagine if you weren't and someone came to you, a student, and said, how do I become a pilot? I mean, so many parents don't know where to start. And we want to make sure that they have all the resources that they need. And we call that program STEMflight Following. It's free. It's open on our website. Anybody can access it. So we want to make sure that all students can have those resources.
Carly, I just want to say back to that other slide, if you are so inclined and offer, you don't have to reconnect with the kid. Many of my kids that I've flown do text me, and of course we want to keep the parents involved and asking for advice or asking for more information about something related to aviation. And if you don't know the answer, just send them to us, to STEMflight Following, and we'll help get that. Go ahead, Carly.
That's right. We're so proud to announce that in December of 2024, we officially partnered with EAA AeroEducate, which is the Young Eagles educational program that they offer their Young Eagle students after their flight experience. STEMflights is inside those modules, and any STEMflight student can go to AeroEducate and take advantage of their learning, their free sporties, all of those awesome educational programs that AeroEducate offers. And in addition, any student going through AeroEducate then in turn gets access to the STEMflights resources and the opportunity to have a STEMflight mission. So this was a really great partnership. Obviously, we have a lot of similarities with the Young Eagles and the sense that we're so passionate about getting kids in that airplane. So we're so happy to work with them to try to reach more kids. You can understand that, by us talking, that our program is a little bit more different, a little bit more time intensive, I guess I should say. So we won't fly nearly as many missions as Young Eagles can get done in a year. But those kids that do go through that program are welcome to come fly with us as well.
And I want to kind of emphasize our partnership is with the EAA AeroEducate, which is not the same as EAA Young Eagles. It's a different part of EAA, and the Young Eagles program is a standalone, and we don't have a partnership per se with them. So this is more educational partnership than any kind of a flying partnership. They're very sensitive about that, and I want to make sure that there's no misconception about that. Go ahead, Carly.
This is a quick snapshot of our current board of directors. As you can see, we have a lot of experts that help guide our program, make sure that we have the most up-to-date STEM information. We have retired generals, pilots, STEM experts, all helping guide our program. And we're so proud of our board of directors and how involved they are with us. Here's a few of our supporters and partners. Our organization is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have a very small operating budget. And with that operating budget, we hope to reach 15,000 students this year in combined flight experiences and educational resources, online curriculum. So combined, we hope to reach 15,000. It's a tall ask, and we are so grateful for our partners and those that sponsor us and our program so that we can reach more students.
And Carly, explain our educational outreach that so many of those kids are exposed to.
Yeah, so do you mean through the STEMflight Following?
Yeah, through the schools that we do.
Okay, okay, yeah. So we offer a free lesson plan for educators. In fact, we have 3 of them that were built by some STEM experts. And really what we're trying to do is get that lesson plan in the hands of educators. Because if you can reach 30 students in a classroom and that educator has a free resource, a lesson plan that they can do for the day, hopefully we're helping out that teacher, giving them something fun that they can talk about in the classroom. But also, if we're talking to 30 kids about aviation, probably some of them are going to want to come and take a flight. Not all of them, but some of them. So we came up with this idea last year, and it's been wildly successful. Educators are grateful to have a resource they can take to the classroom. And as most of you know, unless you have an aviation specific high school, aviation and aerospace just typically aren't discussed in class. In that middle and high school level. I mean, sometimes you can find a drone class or something like that. So we wanted to give something to educators on a national level that they could take into the classroom and give to the students. And it promotes our program. So hopefully the students will enjoy the content and then say, hey, I'm going to go fly. I'm going to go fly with one of those Colorado pilots. So that is really our mission with the educational resources. This is how to join our team. It is a very simple application on our website. We pay for the background check, and you have to watch a couple of videos on how to give a STEM flight. There's many pilots on this call right now that are STEMflight's pilot mentors that I could connect you with if you have questions on how they do their flight and the best practices. We have all of that covered for you, but we try to make it as easy as possible to work with us, to donate your time with us. And we find students in your community is really how we try to do it, using various outreach methods. So there's a QR code right there. If you have a phone, you can take a picture, or it's just stemflights.org. There's a pilot tab. It's got FAQs. It's got videos. Hopefully covers just about anything you could ask for. Anything else to add there, Dad?
Well, is that our last slide?
Yes.
I just wanted to invite the current STEMflight pilot mentors, if they'd like to say anything, Rick or anybody, like to maybe give a little bit of their background. Maybe Rick, I'll start with you.
All right, well, thank you, Dave. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear
Yep.
you.
Gotcha.
Okay, good. So I'm Rick Turley. I fly out of Fort Collins, so Colorado, Northern Colorado Regional Airport. And I've been doing STEM flights for a couple of years now, and I thoroughly enjoy the program. So I'm a regular Young Eagles pilot and participate in the 3 rallies a year that our local EAA chapter do at the airport. But this is a little different. So I actually do fewer students or fewer youth in the aircraft than I do in Young Eagles with STEM flights, but it's more intense. So I get a chance to get to know the student. I get a chance to build a relationship with them. And then our flights are a little longer. I'm usually expecting that they're going to do a fair amount of the flight, that we're going to get out into a practice area and we're going to do some climbs and turns and maneuver around a bit. But I also have planned the flight with them prior as a pre-briefing. We build a flight plan in ForeFlight and try and execute that. but it's been rewarding to me in the level of enthusiasm of the student. As Carly said, there's an expectation of skin in the game. So rather than Young Eagles, where you just need to show up and you get on an airplane, and if you decide not to show up at the last minute, you don't need to be there. There's a lot more commitment here. You have to get a recommendation. You have to get some parent involvement. The student has to do some homework. And I find that brings them to the session in a lot more prepared. And the probably the most interesting one, I had a student that I flew who used the flight experience to enter a young business competition, young business leader competition, and won it at the state level. And so she got a hold of me after she won that and said, I'd like to fly with you again because I'm going to nationals now. I'm going to compete again at a national level with this same pitch. And I'd like some video from the cockpit, and I'd like a little bit more experience and some more discussion with you. So the idea, the opportunity to have that ongoing relationship is very nice, and I really enjoy it. So thank you, Carly. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Rick. I
Rick.
really appreciate your feedback, and thanks for flying so many students. Rick is one of the pilots that always ponies up, so we appreciate that.
I could give everyone here many stories similar to Rick's, but I'm just going to give you one. Even though there's some skin in the game, I've had students, and the one in particular I'm thinking that showed up with his mom, and I at the time had a two-place airplane. I thought this kid was the dumbest shit kid I ever met, and lack of enthusiasm and hanging on to mom. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be a tough one. And the kid had no interest in school. His mom had confided that his thought was he would rather not try than fail, so he never tried anything. So I get him into the airplane with very low expectations, check him out on the controls, let him fly. And in about 5 minutes, you would have thought a whole different kid got in that airplane. He smiled, he was enthusiastic. You could just see the transition in his face. And of course, I'm happy about that, but I'm still not sure of how all of this is going to impact him. We got down, he was just over the top, but his mom wrote me one of the most heartening letters, one of the most appreciative letters I'd ever received, how it changed this kid's life. He was now interested in school, his grades improved, he felt like he could do things and be successful at it. And it was because he actually flew an airplane, which he never thought in his wildest dreams that he could possibly do that. And that kid was, and I've had way more other kids that were, just as impressed and everything, but that kid had no self-confidence whatsoever. And it really did change his life. Now, I don't know if he's going to be a pilot, but he's going to go out there and participate in life. I think we're open now for questions, Mike, unless any of the other STEM guys want to say something. Nope. Do we have questions, Mike?
Okay, I got some questions for you. Looking at your website under how to be a pilot under step 1, it talked about current medical certificate. And it said they would do the FAA database, all that business. I'm assuming, but I don't want to assume anything, that basic med is acceptable.
It is.
Okay. All right. That's good. And I noticed the other thing you have, I didn't see it on one of the screens, but on what I was doing over the week, that you had 22 partners. That's pretty good. That's quite a bit of partnership going on there. In the slide that you showed tonight, I saw some different partners that were in there in addition to what you had there. One that you had there was the Ray Foundation, and I looked them up. I was very impressed with the Ray Foundation and the gentleman that started that and the history of his background going back to World War II, flying bombers and fighter planes and stuff. He was a very successful businessman. And then I saw your advisory board consisted of 4 people. Your board of directors was 7. And then you had 2 individuals on the flight team. So that was pretty good. And the 4 types of missions, I thought that was very interesting for the prospective student to pick what they were looking for. Now, as far as the drones and the physics and advanced air mobility, how would you handle that one with a student?
That's a great
Go ahead,
question.
Courtney.
We struggled with that one a little bit when we were designing it. So to answer your question, Mike, when our pilots get paired with a student, we let them know what mission that they chose. And then we also give the pilot a checklist that goes over some suggested maneuvers that they could do during the flight experience. So if you are having a kid and you know that they did advanced air mobility or something like that, and you're thinking, how am I going to demonstrate this? We've already pulled out those maneuvers for you that apply to aviation and then checked them against what the student learned online with us about that. So we are taking everything that the student is learning about that career or about that part of aerospace, and we are connecting it to something inside the cockpit that they could experience that day while flying.
Okay, that's good.
So Mike,
then,
just if I could just elaborate on that just a little bit, we don't expect our pilot mentors to know everything about every one of those mission areas. I try to hone up on a little bit to be able to talk about it, but really the homework that the kid does will better prepare them for the details of that career field. And then they might ask the pilot questions about it, but I don't want our pilot mentors to feel like they have to be, current and qualified in every one of those mission areas. But we do offer ideas.
Okay, that was another one of my questions I had written down. What's the homework? So it'd be specific to one of those 4 topics, and you'd probably, like with the drones and stuff, you would probably give them a syllabus or something to go through, read up on, and then you could have that discussion later with the applicant. That's pretty good. The application process, I saw that was pretty extensive, especially for the pilot. Who is it reviewed by? Who reviews it, makes the decision that, yeah, that's a good fit for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a director of flight operations named Austin, and the pilots have to meet our criteria. And that criteria is really set industry standard for volunteer pilots. Similar criteria that's Young Eagle expected of Young Eagle pilots and other public benefit flying organizations. So the criteria is set that the pilots have to meet these minimum requirements. And then, of course, if the background check comes back clear and the airman certificate, we make the assumption that these pilots are here and enthusiastic and ready to fly with students.
Okay. Any criteria for the type of aircraft? Is there a specific aircraft, or you shouldn't, we don't want the kids going up in this particular aircraft? Is there any categories of that?
Well, as long as the aircraft is airworthy and safe and it's insured, it's anything. I use a Sea Ray amphibian sometimes, and I use a Cessna sometimes. So it seems like the kids prefer the amphibian, but I prefer the Cessna sometimes. So it just depends.
Okay. Now, I live out here in Castle Rock, Colorado. And how does the school how does the school know about you, get in touch with you, get I saw some banners in the background on some of the pictures that they could put up in the schools. What's the process for doing that?
Yeah, they would work directly with me. I would help the schools. A lot of times educators want a digital version that they can send out to parents. The parents have to be involved. We are working with minors here, so all parents have to sign a waiver of liability on these student applications saying, yes, I agree to my student being in an airplane at my local airport. So we're involved with the parent from the first step. So when I work with educators, they typically want a digital version of it that can go out in a peach jar or some type of email or digital communication with parents. Often also I will send one that they can print. We have brochures, we have cards, we do have STEMflight swag if we're going to a special event as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then I
And
also
if
noticed there was a STEMflight mobile app.
Yeah, there was. We recently just changed our system, so now we're asking all of our pilots to communicate with us via email and text is the best way.
Okay.
We did have a mobile app for a while, but we noticed it wasn't getting used by our pilots quite as much as the old-fashioned way of connecting with their students. I did see another question in the chat, if I can, Mike, is Ryan was asking about a typical time frame, an advance notice of a flight mission being scheduled. So let me just want to walk through that really quick. Let's say there's a student in your community and you're available for a flight. Our flight ops director will, there's two ways to do it. Either he's going to reach out and say, oh, please, Mike, will you take this flight? I have this student, they've been waiting. And you can either say yes or no, or I can't right now, try me in a few months. Another way is all of our pilots that are in our system get a weekly email with a list of students that are available in your area. If you have time, you can select one, and then you work directly with that parent or guardian to determine the best time to meet at the airport. So Mike, if you know, hey, I've got time 3 Sundays from now, you can work with the student's parent to determine that date and time. And then, as you know, it'll get rescheduled 3 times for maintenance and weather, which is fine too. Our parents and our families understand that. So the pilots work directly with the student. And as far as time frame, and Rick, you kind of asked a little bit about this, is, where are there unmet needs for STEM flight pilot mentors? As you can imagine, we are doing a lot of outreach. So in some parts of the country, I have students waiting and no pilots, and there's other parts where I have pilots waiting and no students. So as an organization, we're constantly balancing those two needs. So there are some parts of the country where students are waiting because I don't have a pilot for whatever reason. And we find our pilots in various ways, of like what we're just doing tonight.
Mike, if I could just elaborate a little bit on that first contact. After a pilot signs up and completes the training and is full up to go, we'll start trying to pair him with or her with a student right away. Once that pairing is done, it's done digitally with an email. Then it's up to the pilot or the student's parents. And again, I can't overemphasize the parents are involved. So the pilot calls the student or the student and parent. So the conversation is with the student and the parent. And as Rick kind of alluded to earlier, that's your opportunity to introduce yourself, meet the parents over the phone or Zoom or however you prefer to do it, and get to know the kid a little bit. Ask about the grades, his interests, what mission he or she has applied for. You'll know in advance. You set the date that works for both of you and backup date, and basically it's in your hands from then on. The nice thing about a STEM flight is you do it when you can do it and schedule it with the student. It's not a rally. You can do it 365 days a year if you like, but the parents have to be involved, and it's a good thing too, because they're very comfortable and encouraging. And sometimes I've had parents lean forward even more than the kids and kind of drag the kids there. They still have to do the homework, but what a reluctant kid, sometimes the parent pushes them, and then they're always happy that they did it.
Yeah. Question was, how many STEM flight mentor pilots are in Colorado, and where are they located?
Yeah, I saw that, Rick. I am trying to pull up my list as we're chatting. But I'm gonna guesstimate based on my knowledge that there's between 15 and 20 pilots in the state. From what I'm remembering of my map, they're focused on that upper right-hand corner of Colorado, and I've got a couple down in the southwest area, which makes sense. So I can get you that exactly specifically, Rick, to you in an email.
And then he asked, how many missions do they typically fly each year in Colorado?
Yeah, so We really just started in Colorado in the last few years. So that's just been a constant uptick. Rick flies actually quite a bit for us, and there's a couple other volunteer pilots in the area. So we ask every pilot if they could do 4 per year, and some do more, and some can't do even quite that many.
And then Rick asked, where are there unmet needs for STEM flight mentor pilots?
Yeah, so there's lots of areas in both around the United States. I don't believe in Colorado specifically that I have students signed up that are waiting for a flight because there's no pilot nearby. But around the country, there are pockets of areas where we are always looking for pilots.
Okay.
So
we have
I'll just
another-
add, Rick, if I can, or Mike, if I can just add to that, we've had needs in Denver area before, and I think Rick's helped us out down there. It's sort of a chicken and the egg. If we get a bunch of pilots in the Denver area, we're going to start recruiting kids in the Denver area. And same thing, if we get a bunch of kids first, we're going to try to recruit pilots. So just because I don't have a need of students today, if you sign up, we're gonna go try to recruit for you in your local area.
That's
Okay.
right.
Question was, do you provide a logbook for the student?
So we don't offer flight instruction. That's not what STEMflights does. However, we do have some of our volunteer pilot mentors happen to be certified flight instructors. In those cases specifically, yes, we know that they do, and they are welcome to give the student a logbook. But STEMflights doesn't provide that, and we do not provide flight training.
Right. Okay, good. Well, reviewing your website, I thought it was excellent,
Oh,
very
thank you.
informative. I was very happy that the core values that you listed out there, the one on integrity and transparency, I thought that was an excellent core value going on there. And your mission statement. I've seen a few other organizations, websites, and I think yours is right up there with them as far as thoroughness, professionalism. It's outstanding. Very outstanding.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. I saw Eric just asked a question about parents precluded from the actual flight. So we don't offer a flight experience to parents. That is not something that we offer as an organization. However, depending on your aircraft and depending on your comfort level, I would say about 50% of our pilots that fly for us do offer the parent to fly. And there's 2 ways to think about this. Number one, if you can get the parent involved and excited about this experience, then the kid probably has more success going through their aviation journey. Some pilots feel opposite, though. They feel like if I can get this kid away from their parent, then they open up and they get really excited and they're more involved if their parent's not there hovering. We let our pilots make that decision. We do not offer flights to parents. We just ask if a pilot decides that they want to invite the parent, that's totally fine. Just make sure that they sign a waiver of liability, which we provide. The student and the parent already signed that for the student before they're even matched with you. But if you want to add somebody to the cockpit during the experience, we just ask that you have them sign that waiver as well. And then the second part of that question, was there any liability claims against STEM pilots? No, there are not.
Carly, if I can just add on to that one, I've done many kids alone, and I've done some with parents. I remember one girl that I flew. Her parents brought her, and I happened to have a 4-place airplane that I was flying, and the day was perfect, and the weight and balance was not an issue, and so I invited mom and dad, and so it ended up being the student and mom and dad in the back seat. I think they had more fun than the student, although the student had a ball. So clearly I think we're going to, fan her interest in aviation and STEM. But I also appreciate that some of my kids hardly say anything in the brief. And then when we get, and mom and dad do all the talking, and I don't want to say, shut up, mom and dad, you were here to help the kid. But when I get the kid in the airplane, then he or she will become the chatty one. And you can just tell the pressure of mom and dad is off, and there is a lot of value to that.
Yeah, very much so. Okay. Lost my train of thought. Any other STEM flight pilots out there that want to chip in stories, please? That would be great to hear what you've done and who you met and how it went. Brian, you have any questions, sir? I've been hogging the questions.
You've been doing great. You know, I think I missed it. Is there like an age limit where they start at?
Oh, good.
I didn't do the
Yes.
homework that Mike did on this.
No,
So
that's a great question.
Mike's-
I'm not sure that I covered that. We offer a STEM flight experience for middle and high school students. So that would be 6th through 12th. Yeah. We've just, the data really shows that, they really can't start flight training. I mean, they can, but like it probably at that high school level, it makes a little bit more sense. But there's so much data out there that informed us that if you can capture those students even younger in that middle school range, that they're making those career decisions, and they're making those decisions on what they're afraid of, and if they're going to pursue STEM careers. And so we wanted to include that middle school age range into it. And then of course, if you get a 6th grader who's really excited, you gotta give them more to do for a few years until they can start flight training. But that's why we built our STEMflight Following, is to try to keep them engaged.
The other one is in my travels, I think the single biggest challenge is getting this information out to the respective schools and in front of the parents in general. I mean, you can probably preach it to the schools all day long, and it doesn't necessarily register with the students, so the parents never hear about it. What's the path that you guys are using to do outreach to try to get in front of more potential students?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. And that's kind of the $1 million question too, right? Like, do I need to go on Good Morning America and have this amazing piece done? Probably, yeah. So if anybody's got a contact there, but we created, like I mentioned before in the presentation, we did create some free educator lesson plans, and that's kind of our backdoor way to, if I can get a teacher willing to do a lesson plan about aerospace, and I'm hitting on those those national standards of science and STEM that they are required to teach in their classroom. So if I can give them something, a freebie, right? Like, just here you go, here's a free lesson plan that for you to do, and your kids are going to love it. And it's something different, but you're still meeting those requirements that you have to do for state and national standards. Our hope is that will get a couple of kids in that classroom interested. So that's one way, right? That's only really one way. But what we notice in communities that we start expanding in is, once 1 or 2 students start flying,
Right.
then you got the social media, then you got the Instagram, then everyone's like, wait, this is really, really cool. And wait, I want to do this. So we find if we can get a couple of kids flying and a couple of pilots interested, it really snowballs from there. And like I said earlier too, I go on, Facebook groups. So if we want to talk about what's happening in Fort Collins, you guys, those of you that use social media, that those exist. And I'll post a picture and a link and say, hey, free flights for kids, looking for, kids that want to learn more about aviation and STEM careers. I mean, sometimes we'll have 20 kids sign up just from that single link that parents get excited about.
Brian, if
Yeah.
I can add a little bit to that, I live in kind of a rural area of Virginia. And I've gone to a couple of the schools here, middle schools locally, and talked about STEM and aviation, and I kind of do a little demo. And I can recall doing one to a STEM group from a school from different grades. It was like a STEM club or something. And I came in and gave the presentation, and I got zero interest from anybody to fly. And the teacher that kind of hooked me up, I asked her about it, and she goes, well, nobody was interested in doing it. And I tried to kind of motivate her a little bit to say, yeah, well, you've got to encourage it. You've got to get them out of their comfort zone, and get them out of putting their nose in their iPad and playing a game or whatever they're doing. And she kind of thought about it. And I said, look, let's do this. You take a STEM flight and then you decide if you think it's worth it. And she goes, okay, all right. So we don't really advertise it much, but occasionally some of our pilot mentors will give a teacher a STEM flight. And basically it's the same thing. You do the same thing you do with the kid. You explain it, you brief them, you do everything. And I gave it to her. And again, I had a 4-place, got waivers for everybody, and took her to younger kids that were too young to meet our age limit. But nonetheless, she took the flight, went back, started getting more kids involved. In fact, I just took one of her kids in her class a couple weeks ago, and we made the CBS News in Richmond about it. They came out and covered it and flew with us. And so it takes someone to recognize the value added and be a little bit passionate, because if you just ask a kid, it's, oh no, I don't want to do that, or I'm afraid to fly, or my parents wouldn't let me do that. So our pilot mentors in many cases are very, very helpful in us sourcing students.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, whenever I run across a parent who's got a kid that really is not focused, or trying to figure out activities for them to participate in, I mean, you can't get me to shut up about flying, so that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
So I drop young eagles on them, and they're just like, they think they misheard me when I say they can go get a free flight. And then I talk to them about it. And so, I mean, this is just another adjunct to that, which is super awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, Brian, we appreciate the time tonight. I'm open to any other questions, but Mike asked me to tell a F4 war story if we had fun.
I wasn't going to let you forget.
I
had that written down. I'm like, I'm going to ask that question.
So I did fly F4s for the Indiana Air Guard, and I joined the Guard in 70. Well, I was enlisted for a few years and then went to officer school and got commissioned. And I think we got our first F4 back in like 1979 or 1980, when the Air Force was getting out of them and getting into the F-16s. So I was I don't know, I think a captain at the time. I had flown quite a few hours in the F-100. We had that before we had the F-4. And I went to a maintenance officer school as a pilot in my career. When I was a captain about to be promoted to major. And maintenance officer school, we had a quality control section that I was responsible for. And my job was to take the F-4 up after any major maintenance to make sure it was ready to be returned to the line. And if we got airplanes back from the depot that had gone through the depot, which is a major overhaul, there was a checklist and you had to go through it. But sometimes we'd get F-4s back from the SPO, and at the time the SPO was out in Hill Air Force Base, and we'd find nuts and bolts and wires and too often tools in the belly of the F-4 doing our inspections. And I can remember having a desk piled with junk that was thawed in the F-4 over several months that we kept track of and then let the SPO maintenance people know, and basically try to get them to clean their act up so that we would get better conditions. But the story I want to share is I being responsible for those flights included doing a Mach 2 run in the F4, and despite its ungainly appearance, the F4 was a very, very fast aircraft. It would do over Mach 2. And in order to do over Mach 2, you'll notice some hinged gates in front of the intake on the engines, and those hinged gates would extend and slow the air coming into the intake to a subsonic so that the engine could accept it when you were doing supersonic. And it was called a ramp check because they were actually called ramps. So my job on occasion, when it was required of an aircraft going back into commission, is to do a ramp check, which you had to do. The airplane would typically be clean, and there was a flight path between Cincinnati, Ohio, and Indianapolis. And it was as rural as you could get. It was about equal distance, and I would climb up to just over 40,000 feet and push over, light both afterburners, and accelerate to over Mach 2 so that you could see those ramps program, and the engines would accept the air, and it was part of the checklist. So this one particular evening, they assigned me one, and I got my back seater, and we go out and we go do our mock run, and you get up to 40,000, you nose over, and you go into full afterburner, and man, that thing would just scoot. We'd get Mach 2 before we hit 30,000 feet usually, and then you would run it out, and we did our run. Everything worked. We came out of afterburner, and we were pretty low on fuel, and it was time to turn around. Well, when we landed and got back in, take our flight gear off, the wing supervisor of flying marched down, got us, took us into his office, and just started chewing our ass out for all the reports of bombs going off in Indianapolis and Cincinnati. People thought both cities were under attack from the supersonic booms that we created. And they thought we had done something wrong, but we followed the profile to a T. The climate, the temperatures, the conditions that night were so conducive to doing sonic booms and reverberating in both directions. Needless to say, they came up with a new track because it was a lot of people in a lot of panic that night, and we got in a little trouble for it. That's my story. I didn't go to war in the F4. I was a little bit too young for Vietnam. But I really enjoyed flying them in the Air National Guard. I think maybe close to 1,000 hours, and we flew both C's, D's, and E models. But it was enjoyable.
Which one was your favorite?
I liked the E. It had slats and it had a gun. The others were just missile fires, and I think we learned a lesson in Vietnam that you always want a gun in a close-in fight, so they put a gun on the nose of it, and it was plus there were other upgrades by the time it came to the E model, and that was the last model that they did.
Yep. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Hey, you're welcome, Mike. Thank you. And thanks for the time tonight. Mike, Brian, Rick, shout out to you. Carly, I guess we're done. Okay.
Yeah. If anybody has any other questions, you can find us at STEMflights.org. My email is on there. Dad's email is on there, and we'd love to chat with you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Appreciate it. Everybody out there.
Thanks. Have a good night.